This is The Vault, a Forum Communications podcast covering true crime and general intrigue in the Upper Midwest. Before we begin, I want to address the state of my voice. Like so many people right now, I am suffering with a cold, so bear with me. On today's episode, we are looking at a Minnesota man who went missing without a trace. 7 years later, there are still no answers. This story was originally reported on by Laura Butterbrodt from the Duluth News Tribune. On the morning of December 7th, 2015, Joseph Zach left his residence at a group home when he was supposed to be showering and getting ready for work. 7 years later, there has been no trace of Joseph and no leads in the investigation of his disappearance. Joseph would be 41 today. He had lived at the group home run by Residential Services Incorporated in Brookston, Minnesota for 10 years. He is described as being 6 feet tall and 325 pounds. He is considered a vulnerable adult. His mother, Marlene, describes him as a charming man who loved to joke around. Despite being on the autism spectrum and his struggles with mental health, Marlene noted his remarkable strength and adaptation. He lived at numerous group homes in northern Minnesota during his life. The night before Joseph disappeared, he'd been texting his mother about plans for Christmas, and he was arranging his work schedule at Super One Bakery in Duluth. Marlene said work and appointments were important to her son, and it was highly unusual that he would try to leave knowing he had work soon. He also had a medical appointment for a sinus infection scheduled for later that week. But that seems to be just what Joseph did. He was last seen by RSI staff member at 7:15 a.m., taking his medications before going to shower. Because Joseph had previous stints of leaving the property, staff members were assigned to give visual check-ins with Joseph every 15 minutes. On that day, the employee failed to check on Joseph until just after 8 a.m., missing 3 check-ins. By then, he was gone, with the empty shower still running. Fond du Lac Tribal Police were called to the facility on McCamus Road around 8:30 a.m. Case records show the first officer arrived on the scene at approximately 9:30 a.m. Brookston is on the northern edge of the Fond du Lac Reservation. Ashley Preston, who was the RSI Brookston program coordinator at the time, said both the police and Joseph's parents were called right away when they realized he was missing. While they waited for the police to arrive, RSI staff searched the property. Ashley and John Nelson, executive director of RSI of Northeast Minnesota, said they believe he may have left through the bathroom window. Fond du Lac police requested for an emergency signal ping to be sent out from Joseph's phone just after 10 a.m. This technique helps investigators find devices and narrow down on the location of a person. That's according to St. Louis County Sheriff's Office Deputy Nick Volsky, who later became lead investigator on the case. The only ping they received was a historical signal from approximately 9:15 a.m. that morning, which placed Joseph's phone on the I-35 corridor near Esco. Volsky and other law enforcement officers were unable to determine if the phone was ever actually near Esco, which is about 26 miles southeast of Brookston, or if a tower picked up the signal from afar. The group home is situated on the north edge of town, very close to the St. Louis River. Ashley said she doesn't remember any noticeable footprints on the property or leading to the river, which was a place Joseph had run away to before and tried to swim across before being rescued. However, Volsky said police observed footprints in the snow on the morning Joseph went missing. The footprints went from the residence to the St. Louis River near the back of the RSI property. They then went on to an abandoned trailer house and eventually were lost after returning to McCamus Road near the group home. Volsky said he fears the phantom phone ping misled the investigation away from immediately searching the property surrounding the group home. Joseph's parents said they feel the investigation came to a standstill for the rest of December after the discovery of the ping. Marlene claims law enforcement was unresponsive when she would call for an update or try to arrange for the St. Louis County Search and Rescue to go to the RSI property in the weeks following the disappearance. The St. Louis County Sheriff's Criminal Investigation Division in Duluth was assigned to the case on January 12, 2016, 36 days after Joseph went missing. Volsky said he and his supervisor, Wade Rash, advised Fond du Lac police they wanted to offer assistance on the case as part of a mutual aid agreement. According to Volsky, because Fond du Lac is considered an open reservation, all violent crimes or major cases fall on the appropriate sheriff's office of the county the incident occurs in. He said that in the time before the sheriff's office took over the investigation, no search efforts were made after the initial observation of footprints that led back to McCamus Road. No requests were made by police for assistance from the St. Louis County Search and Rescue Squad. On January 19th, 43 days after Joseph's disappearance, a search party was organized to cover the ground surrounding the group home. Marlene said she initially had planned the search with just family, friends, and RSI employees. But the sheriff and rescue squad stepped in and took over with more human, canine, and mechanical resources. Volsky said the search used a grid system that extensively covered land, woods, and water. Dozens of holes were drilled in the ice on the river, and remote-operated vehicles were used to search underwater. Several additional searches were conducted by the search and rescue squad in the following weeks. Volsky recalls the ice melt was particularly heavy that spring, which made the water too dangerous to search until the river's flow slowed down. Boat searches, cadaver dog searches, and a helicopter flyover to the Sappy Dams in Cloquet were all conducted that spring, but no evidence of Joseph was ever discovered. While several other leads were pursued during the investigation, none resulted in any answers. Fond du Lac police submitted administrative subpoenas to AT&T for Joseph's phone records. The records showed his phone had no outgoing activity after the 9:15 a.m. ping in Esco, and had no activity after December 9th, indicating the phone was off. A Walmart gift card, which RSI reported missing from Joseph's bedroom on December 7th, was never spent. Joseph's debit card was also never used. Joseph's mother learned of him using dating websites and sites with sexual material in the months before his disappearance. The websites, which she said were highly inappropriate for a vulnerable adult to be using, were taking money from his bank account in what Marlene believes was a scam. The investigation found no substantial evidence that Joseph left with or was taken by someone he had met online. Joseph struggled with a gambling addiction and had previously run away from RSI to Black Bear Casino Resort in nearby Carlton. No trace of Joseph was ever found at the casino. Other various reports of potential sightings were all followed up on by law enforcement and all discredited by Fond du Lac tribal police. Joseph's parents covered a lot of ground while looking for their son. They canvassed downtown Duluth, searching for Joseph in places he frequented, including the Great Lakes Aquarium, Canal Park, and the Super One grocery store where he worked. They checked with local homeless shelters. They also asked people in the area who had horses if he had been there, because he had such a great love for animals, especially horses, and was working with horses in his spare time before he went missing. Joseph spent his childhood between family homes in Pine City and Lake Vermilion. When it was time to enroll in school, he began living in a Duluth group home where he could be integrated into public school classrooms. Marlene, who worked in special education in Pine City, said smaller school districts didn't have the resources to support students with autism in the 80s and 90s. When Joseph turned 18, he had to move out of the children's group home and was transferred to an adult group home in Proctor. He graduated from Proctor High School in 2000 after attending classes at Duluth Secondary Technical Center. Joseph became certified in industrial cooking at Secondary Technical Center in Duluth, which was a skill he enjoyed. He was also passionate about the Navy. He participated in the Reserve Officers Training Corps and studied marine mechanics, but struggled with the fine motor skills it required. However, Joseph's primary interest in life was taking care of animals. In addition to helping with horses, he also took care of rescue animals on a hobby farm at RSI in Brookston. Despite all his skills, Joseph was still a vulnerable adult, and his mother said he wasn't taught all the coping mechanisms needed for independence in adulthood. After high school, he moved around several group homes. Marlene said because group homes are very transient facilities where both residents and staff have high turnover rates, he never developed a strong network of friends, except for staff who were paid to take care of him. Because of this and a lack of knowing independent coping skills, his mental health severely declined in young adulthood, leading to several hospitalizations. He also left group home properties without permission on numerous occasions. In one case, Joseph felt his mental health declining, but wasn't receiving an adjustment to his medication at a group home. He took a group home vehicle and drove himself to the Hibbing Hospital, where he'd previously been treated. Instead of treating him, Joseph was arrested. It was later discovered that his medication did, in fact, need to be adjusted. Marlene said in the months leading up to his disappearance, her son's mental health had seemed exceptionally good. He'd even been able to attend his brother's wedding the previous August, which his parents said was a huge milestone. He had come a long way with medication and therapy and felt at home at RSI Brookston. Marlene said her son stood out from the crowd because of his height and size, and that his dimples always made her smile, especially when he was joking around. Many people have different theories about what might have happened that morning in December of 2015. Marlene believes her son was upset by something, possibly the fact that he was being scammed online, the death of the beloved horse he worked with, or another unknown factor that caused him to impulsively run away. RSI management believes his exit seemed premeditated because it was so different from his other spontaneous attempts at running away. Volsky believes, based on the evidence he collected with other investigators, that Joseph either entered the St. Louis River or became lost in the woods. He does not believe there is evidence that Joseph's departure was planned in advance. Marlene agreed with that sentiment, saying he knew how to get himself to a hospital or police station if he needed help with his mental health. She also noted that he would prefer to be somewhere comfortable and would not willingly stay outside overnight, especially in the winter. Despite numerous theories, none have led to finding Joseph. In the wake of Joseph's disappearance, his family, caretakers, and others who knew him or followed his case are still searching for closure and answers. The RSI employee who failed to check on Joseph that morning was fired from the company. The facility was investigated by the Minnesota Department of Human Services, which proved maltreatment did occur. The maltreatment could not be defined as serious neglect by DHS because there was no physical evidence of serious injury or death caused by the neglect. No other action was taken against RSI. Despite Joseph's family's frustration with the employee who failed to check on their son, Marlene said she knows his disappearance has been hard on Ashley and other RSI staff who had cared for Joseph for up to a decade. She said they cared for him like a son, and she appreciates the help they've provided in the investigation and searches. The early investigative failures have been the ultimate of frustrations, according to Joseph's dad, Jim, because chances of finding evidence greatly diminished before the grounds were finally searched in January. Joseph's parents said remembering and rehashing the details and trauma of their son's disappearance is still incredibly painful. They miss their son and desperately wish for answers. 7 years after he disappeared, Joseph's case is still open, but it is inactive. The case is Leeds-based, but no new information has been provided since spring 2016. The case will not officially be closed until Joseph is found.
Keeping in touch with your community through local news and information is the gift that keeps giving all year long. Subscribe now to get 50% off an annual subscription for you or anyone on your list. Visit inforum.com/subscribe to get started.